technology. 1 second. There we are. All right, I think we're back. So my talk is about Agile organization design principles. And the goal is to share a couple of ideas, a couple of guides that you could use when you're going to design your less group and you have to think about larger organizational design issues. The principles will help you make a more informed decision, have some more constructive discussion about what actually is a good idea to do. And to kick this off, I think it's important to realize that there are two goals, two ways that you can be agile. And that is, the first one is that we're probably all familiar with, is that we want to be adaptable or agile at the product level, meaning can we change fast and effective at the level of the product so that we can adapt to changing ideas from the customer and so on. But another agility, another adaptability is that we, as the organization, so can we reorganize or redesign the organization fast and at a low cost? For example, when a product is no longer interesting, or when we want to go to another country or another geographic location, those kinds of things. How fast and how effective can we do that? That's the second component of designing for adaptability. And I think we should think about both if we want to be a true adaptable organization. Now, the question which starts such a discussion, such a design activity, such a transformation is actually the question: why is it that we want to be agile, and why do we want to adopt less, for example? And as you know, the answer can never be because, well, less. The answer must be something else. For example, we want to be more efficient, or we want to be operate at a lower cost, right? I was working with a bank, and they still processed lots of customer requests for trading stock, for example, or for making settlements. They still communicated that and processed that manually. So had lots of people doing that, and they noticed, well, you know, we cannot really be competitive with our competitors if we keep doing that, because our cost is just too high. So in order to be successful in the future, we must become more efficient and operate at lower cost. Or another bank in this case, one of their goals was, well, you know, we have to be really different from the others, and we are not a very big player. So we think that we can be successful if we can provide the most excellent customer satisfaction, the most excellent customer experience. So that would be a reason why we want to adopt Agile. And there are many more reasons. The answer to this question is important because what we're actually trying to do is we are trying to formulate what kind of capabilities our organization would need to have in order to be successful in the future. And these capabilities we want to combine with the less capabilities, or the Agile organization capabilities, so that we then can be successful. So and answering these questions will point out what type of strategic focus the leadership thinks is important, and depending on that, well.
Sorry, I'm very sorry to interrupt. I think if you're supposed to be sharing your slide deck, you're not doing so.
Oh, I'm not sharing my slide deck. That's a bad idea. Thank you for that feedback. Here we go. I hope this helps. Are you seeing my slide deck now?
Yeah, we do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I was talking through all these slides, by the way. So these questions determine what kind of focus we need as an organization to be successful. And in general, there are three focuses that you can have, and each of them is equally valid. It depends on your specific context. And if you're, for example, an operations-centric company, then well, you want to be a low-cost producer. You want to focus on standardization, and maybe success is measured in cost per transaction. If you want to lower that cost, you want to be operational excellence. That's what you want to go. And then if you implement less, well, this strategic focus will decide specific details of your less adoption. Same as if you're a product-centric organization, which is much closer to traditional less. Well, then maybe you measure value in product revenue, and innovation is important, and maybe it's important to deliver fast, be first to market, for example. So speed would be a capability that will give you success in your organization. So these things are important to know, so that you know what it is that you want to design for, which capabilities you want to design for. And of course, then we need to combine those with the less organizational capabilities, which are, as we all know, we want to have stable teams. We want to have teams who can deliver value, whatever that value is in your strategic situation, right? We want to have people who are kind of a creative mindset, so a growth mindset. We want to be able to learn a lot, would be to validate assumptions quickly. So these general less capabilities, we need to combine those. And if we do that, then we can get an idea about the capabilities that we want to develop in our organization. And the problem, of course, is that we don't have those our capabilities probably at this moment. So the idea is then that we need to build those capabilities. And that's where organizational design comes in, you see. So we want to build an organizational design that allows us to build those required capabilities so that we can be successful. And that is what organizational design is about. And it basically boils down to three main areas, which is, so how do we structure ourselves? So how do we assign responsibilities? How do we distribute accountability? How do we do all these kinds of things? Another key component is it's about human operations. So what kind of folks do we need here? What kind of mindset do we need? What kind of skills we need in the persons that work in our company so that we can be successful? And then, unfortunately, you have to divide the work in one way or another, at least in the context of less, which is a large context. And because of that, you will always then need to have a process to coordinate, a process to integrate, a process to make decisions that cut across different units. So these are the three main ideas that you have to think about when designing the organization. And what I want to share with you today is, I want to share with you a couple of these principles. We, as Ilya said, we are working on this book, which is already 6 months late. And we identified a couple of principles, and there are a couple that I want to share with you today, and I hope I have time to touch upon 4 of them today. So you have an idea about what they are, and you can see if they can actually help you a little bit in making decisions about design issues. So let's start with the first one. So the first one is decouple unit functions. So what does that mean? So if you look at traditionally, what we do is if we have an organization, let's say a department or a larger organization, there's always an objective. Let's say, just for simplicity, that the idea is, well, we want to create value for stakeholders or money, right? And then we have to think about, so what kind of functions do we then need? What is the activities that we need to do in order to achieve that objectives? And if you look at a simple organization, let's say we need a sales function so we can sell the products. We need a product development function so we can actually build it, and maybe we need some IT. Unfortunately, we need IT, so we have systems and we again deploy stuff and so on. And maybe we need some administration function. And then what we do is we then allocate each of these functions to separate units. And then that's it. These units will be expressed in departments or in teams. Let's just call them organizational units. Now, in your current organization, in your less context, you probably have lots of units because of the massiveness of LS adoption. And then the question becomes, are these units designed in a proper way? And we know from Professor Warren that there is an important principle to take into account. And that is that you want to decouple certain functions in the case that if a unit wants to achieve their specific function, but while they pursue their function, while they pursue to realize that function, if that impacts the possibility of another unit to achieve their function, then it's a bad type of coupling. So we want to prevent that. We want to prevent that attempts to achieve a particular function by a unit negatively impacts the other one, another function that is being pursued by another group. And that is a general idea which you can use. And in my experience, there are lots of couplings going on, not only functions, but you can also think about shared channels or shared component or shared surfaces or platform groups and so on. You can imagine that for your own configuration. And at one of my customers, this is a very simplified view on that. We had this situation. And for example, you can see here IT and business classical separation, and product development about developing products and insurances and so on. And you can see at the middle that innovation there was a part of product development. And then the question is, so and you can see that they have their own function that they have to achieve, like for example, product development's function is to develop efficient products, lending products and insurance products. And innovation was, well, we want to introduce, we need to introduce new technologies into the market, etc. That's our function. It's important for the insurance company to do this. The question then becomes, can these units achieve their requirements independently? So we need to understand if there's coupling. Now, fortunately, it's very simple actually to visualize that. And you can visualize that in such a matrix. And this is an example of such a matrix. You can see here these functions on the left and the units on the top.
Cesario, sorry, we still can't see slides. You
cannot see the slides?
Yeah.
I see.
I see the slides.
I can.
Yeah.
We can.
Sorry.
That's good feedback, by the way, right? Because I cannot see you guys. I'm just seeing my screen. So I hope you guys are there also. Are you still there?
Yeah, there.
Yes. All right. Okay. Cool. So so we were talking about this matrix. So these strange R's here, they just mean that if you look at innovation here, you see, well, innovation, that unit, so their responsibility, their function is to introduce new technologies into the market, which is a good thing. And you can see that they are highly dependent upon that. So there's a strong relationship. That's the R in the middle. But now let's look at the product development group. So they have as main responsibility, as main function to develop efficient products. But as you can see here, the two functions units are coupled. And for example, in this particular customer, one of the problems they had that gave insight that they had this coupling was that, well, these innovation guys, they wanted to try out new stuff. They wanted to try out risky technology. They wanted to try out new ideas and said, well, let's do this, right? But because they were part of a larger group, which had the larger product development group, which had as its main goal to develop efficient products. They were constantly in this stress, and more often than not, it would be decided, well, you know, we have to deliver the products real quick and so on now. It's important to do it now. There's pressure. We have these customers, and innovation was put on a lower priority, and the problem is this coupling. And if you have noticed that, then according to Warren, we need to decouple that, and that's rather simple actually. And there are many options to do that. I want to share just two. So the first option is that you can restructure and transfer these responsibilities to a separate unit. And if you are a programmer, this would sound very familiar. So you see here this innovation group, which has this, which falls below the product development group. And they have these conflicting goals, as I mentioned. So the idea is, well, in this case, what we can do is, and what we did is, we need to move this up. If we move innovation up like this, then the development of efficient lending products is now decoupled from the introduction of new products. Now, there are still dependencies, for example, technology dependencies probably, and so on, but the fundamental problem of achieving the goals in a coupled manner is solved. So these innovation guys would get their own resources, their own people, maybe their own management, and so on. And this would create this decoupling. We are actually flattening the hierarchy, reducing coordination, reducing conflict. Otherwise said, we are increasing speed and adaptability. So what we actually did is we just removed, from a matrix perspective, we tried to remove this one here by a simple redesign. And this is a very powerful, but simple, but powerful idea. Another option would be, well, why don't we just redefine the requirements? That would be easier also, and maybe is also possible in your organization. So let's look at another example from the same customer. So we see here the business who has as main responsibility to maximize profits, but you see below also that that the product development has a strong relationship with that same requirement. So although their requirement is to efficiently develop corporate lending products, it is strongly related and strongly influenced by the decisions and the goals of the business unit, right? So for example, the product development unit said, well, you know what, we want to be more efficient and so on, and we want to develop these products. We need to do refactoring and re-architecting, and we need to reduce technical debt and do more automated testing and so on. But because the business group was not responsible for that, as you can see, it's not their main responsibility. They would say, well, good idea, but maybe that's your problem and not mine. You see, this is interesting, but hey, maybe you see, we can do it later. So we have these kinds of stresses. So you could say, well, why not apply the same idea that we did with the innovation group? But in this case, I want to share another consideration you can take, and that is, instead of separating these two responsibilities even further, we have to take into account if these two functions, if these two responsibilities are actually not part of the same system, meaning, are they not essential parts of the system, in this case, the product? Are they not essential to be able to achieve the purpose of this product? And that's worth investigating. And we know how to do that, at least we know from this person. We have to understand what the function is. So we already know that of the units. And then we have to understand, so is it essential? Meaning, is it needed to achieve the purpose of the larger system, in this case, the product? And we came to the conclusion, yes, both the efficiently developing the product and, of course, maximizing profit is a part of the larger system, which is, in this case, a product group or a product definition. So in contrast to the innovation example, which could be clearly separated, those two, the innovation did not contribute to the purpose of the product. These two cannot be separated. So instead of separating them more, we must move into the opposite direction, meaning we have to merge it. We have to make the one unit which is responsible for both efficiently developing and maximizing profit, because both are essential. Both, you can only achieve success if you take both into account. And this is what we do, for example, in LESS when we try to extract a product definition, right? We take these kinds of considerations into account. So what we actually did was remove that and merge it into the business group, right? So that was two principles, two options to think about the principles that Nikolai Warren shared with us, that we have to decouple functions if achieving one function will prevent another unit to achieve their function. And we can do that in many ways. I shared two. So there's another one here, a community platform, another principle that you can use to think and discuss in your organization. And that has to do with platform groups. So a platform is a shared piece of code, for example, with some commodity functionality on it, like iOS or Android or databases or internet channels. Those are platforms, and those are commodity. And internally, if you are a big company, you have probably large internal platforms. And maybe there are 800 people working on that platform. And then it's pretty hard to say, well, you know, we have to define the product and eliminate the 800 people group. That will probably be not very practical. So this platform group will have a platform owner and will have a platform backlog and so on. And the problem then, of course, is that this will be a single point of bottleneck, and it will slow down a lot product development, especially if the platform also has their own KPIs, etc. So what to do? So the idea is to think about the platform just like what it is supposed to be, and it is a commodity platform, right? That is, what can we do so that the platform is reduced to just commodity stuff, meaning it contains functionality, it contains algorithms that is not very sexy, that is not very specific, it's not very special to the product. It's not that we're going to say, hey, customers, we are a bank and we have a payment process. That's not very sexy, that's very commodity. You don't distinguish yourself in the market from that perspective. So that would be excellent thing, an excellent functionality to leave in the core. But the other product-specific functionality, that's what you want to move out as much as you can from the core into the product. And then there are a couple of ways that you can think about doing that, meaning maybe you can physically move functionality away from the core, right? By just deleting lines of code and re-implementing them somewhere else. Or you can think about what can we do that products can have more, can just access and program, for example, parts of the core themselves, leaving the functionality inside the core already, but just changing responsibilities and ownership of parts of the core. And if you do that, you will increase cohesiveness, you will reduce collaboration overhead, you will reduce bottlenecks, which can benefit your speed of development, which can benefit your agility. So commodity platform is a very popular one in my experience to try out and to use that as a thinking tool when you have the discussions in your group. Another one that I can share, because there's still time, is one you probably have seen before. And that is, if you have dependencies that are reciprocal, meaning they are constantly going on. So a unit A or a function A makes a decision, implements something that will affect a unit B. But then what unit B does will affect unit A again, and vice versa. Those are reciprocal dependencies, and these dependencies hurt the most, as you can see here in this graph, especially if the work that is being done is not analyzable, meaning product development, meaning software development. It's not very analyzable. We don't really know what we should build, and we don't really know how we should build it. Well, what the database does influences what the Java guys do, and what the Java guys do influence what the UX guys do. And so we have these reciprocal dependencies. And if you have them, then costs of coordination are very high. So we want to minimize those. And a way to minimize those is to contain them within the same unit. That's what we are talking about when we do that. And then there are other types of dependencies, like sequential dependencies, meaning, well, this is dependency that we can actually do sequentially. It's not very complicated, for example. We are pretty sure that when we hand off this work, they can do it without too much interaction with us. So maybe we should not contain them at this moment in time within our unit, or maybe we can assign it as a shared surface within our organization. So to understand this, we have to study this, the dependencies, and this is easy. And I want to share you an example that you've probably seen before in my my other talks or slides. And this is that you just use the work that needs to be done. Maybe you can look at work that you did last 6 months, or the work that you plan to do the coming 6 months, and just play and study how that work works in your organization. For example, what I like to do is I like the group to identify some key users. And then, well, if once we identified these users, what kind of work, what kind of features do we need to develop, enhance, change for them? And then we just study that we are actually doing that for these users, and then we discover which units need to do something, and then we take a note of that, and we play around with that, and we get an idea as we gather more and more data, which units are needed the most, and there's probably a reason why in this case these 3 are needed the most, and the reason is that they are maybe part of the same product. And maybe we can now identify that these are also reciprocal dependencies. And if they are, then you can have a discussion about it and say, well, maybe if we want to be fast and flexible, we should contain these 3 units inside the same group, unless this would be expressed as a product definition. And maybe web is not needed right now, as you can see, because, well, they're only needed a fraction of the time. Maybe sales is not needed because they are not needed at all. If I look at this system, maybe maybe it's a sequential dependency. Well, you want to have these kinds of discussions with your group, and these techniques can help you do that. Facilitate that discussion. So there are some guidelines here. You want to contain the reciprocal dependencies, and then if you have sequential dependencies which are less critical, which are less uncertain, well, we can maybe consider managing them with iterative processes, for example, but having them in a separate unit, and pooled dependencies. Well, maybe you can just have a simple coordination rule here. Maybe you can have a project manager here who you can ask to say, well, in 3 months or in 2 months, we need a guy from legal, or we need whatever it is, that specific dependency. And he can actually then manage that because it's certain and it's not very critical. There would be criteria to use to determine if it is a reciprocal or not a dependency. I see we have still a couple of more minutes. So let me then do the last one more then. So maybe this one is interesting. So shared surfaces. So when you move to implementing these less capabilities in combination with your strategic focus capabilities, what you normally are looking for is you want to have these product groups, which are large product groups, and we want to have them to be independent. But that means usually that you have to make decisions about, are we going to duplicate stuff? Are we going to duplicate sales, or are these product groups having to have little sales departments, little security departments, are we going to duplicate certain functions across all the product groups? And that's good, because that will make us independent, at least independent from the local perspective of the product group. But if you take a step back and look at across the product groups, maybe locally optimizing the products is not a very good optimization for the whole company. So maybe there are certain surfaces that should be shared. So we can have economies of scale and economies of scope and so on. But then the question is, well, which of these surfaces should be shared? How can we determine it? How can we have a discussion about that so that we can then make an informed decision on what we should do in our specific context? Now, there is this guidelines that you can use for that, and that is one way is that you can have a look at these surfaces that you want to discuss and say, so if we plot them against each other along two axes, like for example uncertainty and criticality. Criticality meaning, well, what this shared surface does is very critical for the success of my product group, right? If it's the higher critical it is, well, the more important it becomes from that perspective. And uncertainty is about, well, this shared surface, right? Does it introduce uncertainty, like proper delivery in time, delivery of uncertainty in delivering the right thing of the right quality, etc. So the higher the uncertainty, the more nervous you can become as a product group. And typical that I find, so again, it will probably be different in your context, which are unpredictable and are critical, affecting many outcomes. Could be UX, right? Or customer analysis, marketing, a shared database. Those are all unpredictable in my experience most of the time. Because, well, we don't really know what UX will work. We don't really know what kind of problem is the right problem to solve, you see. And they're pretty critical, you see, depending on, of course, your strategic focus. So you probably want to discuss and say, well, maybe we should add them into our group. We want to contain them within our group. On the other hand, maybe a payment process and you're a bank, well, this thing works 99.99% of the time. It's not very sexy. It's not very critical in that sense. So maybe no reason to contain that. A perfect candidate for a shared surface. Sales, for example, could be critical. Well, they need to sell stuff for us. But if in your context, it's certain what they need to do. It's certain what customers they need to approach. It's certain what the product is, and it could be a shared surface, probably, right? So, and that way you can plot your shared surface candidates among this and have a informed discussion about that, about what you should do, if you should contain them within your group, or if you should duplicate them across your product groups, or if you should, if they are candidates for a shared surface. And just like a commodity platform, the commodity surface is also a way to look at that. So these are the just four that I wanted to share. So you have an idea about what these principles are and how they can maybe help you have a good discussion in your own company. And to close this, I just want to mention a caution that every complex problem has a simple solution, which is wrong. Please use, of course, your intelligence always, and if you decide to use these kinds of principles, these are a conversation guide, so that you can have some points, some context to make decisions within your own company. So I think we then have 5 minutes for any questions, I think.
Yeah.
So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Cesario, your awesome talk. And let's dive into our question session. The first most upvoting question is, do these principles have any connection to the concepts from Wordley's maps? I see many similarities.
Wow. Do they have relationship to what?
Wordley's maps.
Ooh, I don't know what that is. What is
I'll share the link then.
I'm sorry?
I will share the link then. If you're somehow interested, I can share the link.
Yeah, maybe I don't understand exactly the word you're using. Value stream maps?
No. Wordley maps. So Wordley. Simon Wordley.
Maybe, but I don't know what that is.
All right, no problem.
So sorry for that.
Okay, and next question is, in the big companies, you have all three strategic initiatives blended.
Yes.
Do you need to pick only one direction to succeed? Doesn't it bring you to sub-optimization then?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So, and the problem is, in reality, that of course they do not, large companies do not have one of these three, there are more, but of these three foci, and they always have a mix, a blend. The important part is, at least how I do it, is we need to agree. So the leadership in this case needs to agree on some kind of priority about which capabilities are most important. So they can mix, for example, these capabilities that we saw in the slide with the strategic foci, and then say, okay, which do we think are most important? And then you can use that prioritization to make decisions. At least that's how I approach it. And another thing to consider is that in a large organization, maybe in the part of the organization where operational excellence is important, then the prioritization would be a little bit different than in a part of the organization where product development is important. So if you have a big enough company, maybe you can actually see these different foci within the same organization. But generally, what I encourage the leadership to do and work with them to achieve is, so if you look at all these capabilities and you had to order them in strategic importance, what would that ordering be? And then use that to make decisions in the design sessions that follow that.
Yep. And the next question is, sounds like these strategies are aimed at large organizations to remain large. What about organizations that want to become a collection of smaller networked organizations?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a very difficult question because I can give many answers. So yeah, if you if your goal is to break up, so if you want to buy a company and then break it up and then sell individual parts because you can gain a lot of money from that, if that is your goal, well, then who cares about adaptability and agility? So I think it depends. It depends on what it is you want to achieve.
Yeah, that was me. Maybe I clarify. There are now examples of companies that choose it as a strategic direction, Actually, Google did it already with going from Google to Alphabet, but they still remain a company.
Mm-hmm.
Or there are, let's say, Chinese Hire, which is more than, I don't know, 20,000 people that split up in 2,000 organizations.
Yes.
And they just operate as independent units.
Yes. Okay. Now I know what you mean. There are many examples also here where I live. Banks and insurance companies do that also. And so in that, if you and the question is, okay, how can you use these principles in that case? I think that yeah, these principles can be used or are already used probably before you made the decision to split off. So I think that these kinds of insights led the leadership to realize, well, this is without a chance, this is impossible. We have too much coupling, for example. We have too much opposing units who work against each other. If we want to be and we want to enter a new market, or if we want to sustain or serve a specific customer segment, well, let's decouple it, but then radically into and split off a different legal entity. So I think, Ivan, that maybe I wasn't present in these discussions, but I think I can imagine that these kinds of decisions to split off legal entities would be driven by these kinds of problems that the principles actually make transparent.
Thanks.
And one more, innovation is not so independent unit. They will be generating demand for dev and ops once they succeed with their ideas. Not so independent IMO.
So in the example I gave, so the dependencies are still there, of course, because they only do innovation. And one of the problems, of course, that we have is if we have product units who do their own innovation, then what you're actually asking the product owner to do is, well, why don't you kill your own product and replace it with another one? Well, that's it's called the innovator's dilemma. That's pretty hard to solve that problem. You see, that, wow, I don't know if that's a good idea. Well, maybe we can use this old product a little bit longer. So if you want to fix that, and it exposes the dependency as I gave in my example, then by pulling that up, it's a refactoring we know from software, then we can at least, we at least have, as Nikolai Warren says, decoupled the goals of the individual units so that they don't affect each other negatively. We are still left with technology dependencies and infrastructure dependencies and so on. That is true. But maybe we can then apply other principles to do that and to maybe fix that a little bit.
Okay, and the last one. Have you ever heard CXT value streams concept? Do you think it's a good way to decouple unit functions?
CXT value stream. I know about value streams and value streams. So I don't know what CXT value streams are, but value streams, as we know it from I don't know, from SAFe and from our lean friends, at least how I see it in companies when they are using it wrong, is that the value stream maps all these activities that need to be done, for example, in sequence, and then we want to visualize where the work stops and there's waiting, for example. Now, waiting is not a good idea, but if the activities in the stream are, for example, reciprocal, then it doesn't make any sense to have these activities in separate units if your goal is to be fast and flexible. So you see, so the value stream could be a technique that I also use now and then myself to study what it is, what activities are actually used in the organization. And once we have that, we can then study further and see what type of dependencies these are. Are these reciprocal? Are these critical? Are these uncertain? So I would take it from that perspective, not knowing what a CXT value stream is actually.
Okay, thank you, Cesario. And let's move to our coffee breaks for 10 minutes.
All right, thank you.
I will share my screen with a timer.
Yeah, thanks, Cesario.